You wake up again, same ceiling, same bed, but something inside you feels cracked. Beneath the weight of silent expectations, you sense yourself fading. And you wonder, who am I under these well-meaning rules? Because there's a force more invisible than any crowd, a force that shaped you before you could speak. A parental voice with its own story, its own wounds, its own blueprint for you. They were not villains. They were simply caught in their own versions of rightness, and in molding you, they silenced something essential in you. Today, we meet them, we name them, we reclaim what they took by default. 1. The perfectionist architect. They designed you to excel. Straight A's, spotless room, safe choices. On the surface, it's ambition. Underneath, it's a fear so deafening, it demands excellence to stay loved. So you learn to hide your cracks, stopped dreaming outside the lines, avoided risk, became polished, not free. 2. The people-pleasing gardener. They rewarded your smiles, but only when they were pleasant. So you pruned your edges, buried your anger, minimized your dreams, because a good child was one who never upset the garden. You became lush on the outside, but starved on the inside, because pleasing others became your default soil. 3. The scarcity warden. They feared you would never have enough, so you better not ask for more. Love, time, space, everything was rationed under their watch, so you learned to compromise your needs, to self-contain, to believe you must earn what everyone else can take without guilt. 4. The legacy keeper. They saw themselves in your mirror. They placed their missed dreams on your shoulders. Build your purpose as theirs, to complete. So you pursued ideals whispered to them in their silence. You became a bridge between generations, not because it was your journey, but because it was their unfinished story. And each archetype whispered a lie to you. Asterisk. Perfection equals approval. Agreeing keeps you safe. Asterisk. Asking is selfish. Asterisk. You belong to the family's dream. You internalized each voice until you forgot your own. But now, something deeper is stirring. Not rebellion, not blame, but remembrance. You sense the sound of your own voice, shaped by a calling no one taught you to feel. Because this moment isn't about pulling down your parents. It's about pulling yourself up. About unlearning what was written in invisible ink across your soul. About meeting the child who waited beneath those complicit scripts. So breathe. Lean into the ache. Let it fill your bones with undeniable truth. You were born before their stories, not for their safety, not for their project, but for your own wild, essential becoming. And now you're ready to carve a brand new language of self-expression where every whispered no is a revolution. Every raw yes is a reclamation. Every boundary an act of soul affirmation. This is your renaissance, your primal return. And it begins now with each breath, each boundary, each refusal to shrink. You may feel fear rise. That's good. Fear is the echo of something greater waking up inside you. And once it wakes, you can't unhear it. This is not about your parents anymore. It's about your liberation. Let the archetypes watch and rise anyway. And maybe no one ever told you you don't need permission to be yourself. Not from your mother's quiet disapproval. Not from your father's distant pride. Not from tradition, not from culture, not from any inherited ghost whispering, this is how we've always done things. Because what they call love often came with conditions. What they named protection often cost you your voice. And what they celebrated as discipline often buried your spirit. But here's the truth. They never said out loud. Their fear was not your inheritance. Their shame was not your identity. Their version of love was not your only option. And now you've reached the edge. The moment where silence turns into rage, and rage becomes revelation, where you no longer ask, what do they expect of me? But instead whisper through gritted teeth, what do I expect of myself? This isn't rebellion. This is resurrection. because your real self, the one who used to sing too loud, dream too big, laugh too freely, is clawing her way back from the grave. And she's tired of waiting, tired of begging for space in a family photograph that never made room for her full spectrum. So you stop. You stop apologizing for your sensitivity. Stop diluting your fire. Stop folding your desires into smaller, quieter versions of someone else's dream. Because today, finally, you remember you were never born to play a role in someone else's script. You are the pen. You are the author. You are the storm and the stillness that follows it. And no legacy, no guilt trip, no unspoken rule book can hold back what's coming. You, unfiltered, uncompromised, undeniably alive, let them gasp. Let them misunderstand. Let them mourn the obedient version of you. You didn't betray them. You simply chose truth over performance. And for the first time, you're not just surviving your past. You're rewriting it. With every choice that feels too bold, every truth that feels too loud, every boundary that feels like blasphemy to your upbringing. You are declaring to the universe, I am not who they told me to be. I am who I was born to become. And that is the most sacred revolution of all. And maybe they'll say you've changed, that you're different now, harder to reach, more distant, less agreeable. And you'll look them in the eye, heart steady, and say, I didn't change. I just stopped abandoning myself. Because for years you mistook silence for peace. You thought pleasing was love. You believed shrinking made you safe. But safety is not silence. Love is not performance. And peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the presence of truth. And your truth, it's not quiet. It's not convenient. It's not here to make others comfortable. It's here to set you free. So you stop lying by omission. Stop smiling when your heart is screaming. Stop playing the version of yourself that fits neatly in everyone else's narrative. Because now you know authenticity will cost you things. Comfort, approval, maybe even connection. But do you know what costs more? Living a life that isn't yours. Waking up decades from now realizing you never really showed up. That you lived as a ghost in your own skin, a stranger in your own story. No, not anymore. You will lose some things on this path, but what you gain is everything. Your voice, your self-respect, your sacred, unstoppable wholeness. This journey, it isn't clean, it isn't easy, but it is real. And real will always be worth it. So cry if you need to. Shake, scream, break the cycle with trembling hands, because your healing won't look like putri. It'll look like rage, like grief, like courage you didn't know you had, until one day, without even realizing it, you'll wake up in your own skin and feel at home. And that moment, that's what all the pain was preparing you for. Not perfection, not performance, but presence. Unapologetic, unbent, unbound. This is who you were before the world taught you to fear your own light. And now you rise. You rise not with vengeance, but with vision. Not to prove anything, not to fight back, but to finally embody everything you were forced to put away. The parts of you that spoke too loudly, loved too deeply, wanted too much. The parts they called too sensitive, too intense, too much to handle. But what they really meant was too awake for the cage we built. And now that cage is cracking. Because truth, once remembered, is louder than shame. Because desire, once unchained, moves like wildfire through your bone. You feel it now, don't you? The pull to live without explanation, to create without asking, to speak without rehearsing, to exist without earning your place in every room. This is not ego. This is returning. Returning to the unshaken ground of who you were before survival trained you to perform. Returning to the stillness beneath the noise. returning to that child who once danced before she learned the word embarrassed, who once asked, why not, before anyone taught her to ask, can I? So you reclaim her, you take her hand, you walk her out of the shadows, you whisper through the pain, I see you now, I'll never leave you again. And from that moment forward, you stop living for applause. You stop curating your life for everyone else's consumption. You stop explaining your boundaries to people who benefit from your lack of them. Because freedom doesn't need a round of applause. It only needs permission, and that permission must come from you. You don't owe the world a softer version of your truth. You don't owe your past a performance. You owe yourself your presence, your fire, your life lived on your terms. So let them say you're different. Let them call it selfish. Let them walk away. But don't you dare walk away from yourself, because your soul has been waiting decades for you to come home. And now you're here. Finally, unfiltered, unfolding, unstoppable. And now that you're here, fully, finally, undeniably here, you can feel what was always underneath the noise. Peace, not the peace of pleasing, but the peace of belonging to yourself, a peace that doesn't shake when they misunderstand you, that doesn't vanish when they disapprove, that doesn't crumble when you're alone. Because now you know you were never meant to be understood by a world that profits from your confusion. You were meant to be known by you. And in knowing yourself deeply, wildly, unapologetically, you become the revolution your younger self prayed for. You become the safety you never had, the voice you never heard, the fierce, sacred presence that no longer needs to be rescued because she remembered she was the rescuer all along. So what now? Now you build, not from survival, but from sovereignty, not from fear, but from fire. Now you create, not to be seen, but because you see yourself, and that is enough. Now you lead, not to prove your worth, but because your being is already a form of leadership. You live, you love, you root, you hail, you rise again, not as a performance, but as practice, the sacred practice of showing up again and again for the one person who was always worth it, you. And as you walk forward, no longer hidden, no longer edited, no longer at war with your own reflection, you carry this truth like armor. You were never broken. You were just buried. And now you rise. You rise not gently, not quietly, but like thunder cracking through decades of silence. Because this isn't a self-help moment. This is a spiritual eruption. This is the shedding of 1,000 false skins, the final breath of who they told you to be, and the first roar of who you actually are. You are not here to be palatable, not here to be polite, not here to dim your light so others don't squint. You are here to burn, to ignite the part of your soul that has been smoldering under layers of obedience, to burn down every lie that said your worth is earned by performance, that your love must come with sacrifice, that your existence must be explained. No, not anymore. Now you walk differently. You no longer shrink in rooms where you once begged for approval. You no longer chase conversations that cost you your dignity. You no longer bow to the altar of external validation, because you remember now, you are the altar. You are the sacred fire. You are the one you've been waiting for. And if that makes people uncomfortable, let them squirm. You didn't come here to be digestible. You came here to be undeniable, to live so vividly, so fully, so freely, that even your silence sounds like a symphony, that even your scars start singing. This is not a glow-up. This is a soul return, a reclamation, a declaration, a sacred rebellion against every quiet death you ever endured in the name of acceptance. So let the world watch. Let them misunderstand. Let them label what they'll never dare to become. But you keep walking with your truth in your chest and your ancestors in your spine, because this isn't the end of your story. It's the moment you stop living someone else's. It's the moment your real life begins. This is the moment you stop apologizing for breathing. Stop explaining why your dreams are too big, why your silence is sacred, why your boundaries are not a suggestion, because you've paid the price of invisibility. You've lived inside the cage of politeness, cloaked yourself in masks made of approval, suffocated beneath the weight of expectations that were never yours to carry. But not anymore. Now, every breath you take is an act of defiance. Every step forward is a betrayal to the systems that told you to stay small. Every word you speak, every truth you honor, every limit you enforce is a love letter to your younger self who once whispered, "Please don't forget me." And you didn't. You remembered her. You found her buried beneath people-pleasing and quiet desperation. You dug her out with your bare hands. You held her, trembling and tender, and said, "I see you. I believe you. I'm not leaving." And now you protect her with your fire, with your truth, with your refusal to shrink ever again. This is what healing looks like. Not always soft, not always serene, but powerful, grounded, relentless. It's the rebuilding of a foundation that was never meant to hold your weight. It's learning that you were never too much, you were just surrounded by people who wanted less. But your light is not up for negotiation. Your truth is not a debate. Your real self, messy, magical, unfiltered, is not a liability. It is your legacy. So carry it loudly, bravely, sacredly, because the world doesn't need another version of someone else. It needs you, the real you, unmasked, unapologetic, unstoppable. And now, standing in the ashes of everything you once called identity, you finally understand. The war was never outside of you. The battlefield was within. And the victory, it was never about winning over the world. It was about no longer betraying yourself to be part of it. Because nothing is more violent than the quiet death of authenticity, and nothing more holy than its return. You are not a reflection of what they feared in you. You are the embodiment of what they lost in themselves. That's why they tried to break it. Your fire, your intensity, your refusal to conform, because you reminded them of a freedom they buried long ago. And they couldn't bear to watch you live what they gave up chasing. But that's not your burden. You were not born to carry the shame of others. You were born to unfold, to express, to erupt into your own sacred becoming. So let them judge. Let them distance themselves. Let them call it rebellion or selfishness or madness. You call it coming home. Coming home to your untamed truth. Coming home to the fire in your belly. Coming home to the sacred roar of your own existence, where you no longer ask, "What do they expect of me?" but instead whisper through gritted teeth, "What do I expect of myself?" This isn't rebellion. This is resurrection. Because your real self, the one who used to sing too loud, dream too big, laugh too freely, is clawing her way back from the grave. And she's tired of waiting, tired of begging for space in a family photograph that never made room for her full spectrum. So you stop. You stop apologizing for your sensitivity. A presence, a revolution dressed in skin, a soul too loud to be tamed, too deep to be packaged, too alive to ever be forgotten again. You were not meant to be understood by everyone. You were meant to be undeniably yourself. Let that settle into your bones. Let it wash away the need to explain your evolution, to justify your silence, to soften your edges just to make others feel safe in their stagnation. You are not here to make them comfortable. You are here to wake the sleeping parts of the world by waking yourself first. You are not broken. You are breaking free. And yes, it will cost you. It will cost you comfort. It will cost you people. It will cost you the illusion of safety you once traded for approval. But what you gain is priceless. You gain nights of deep, real peace because you no longer abandon yourself to be accepted. You gain mornings of fire because you now rise not out of duty, but out of desire. You gain a relationship with your soul so raw, so unwavering, that not even the loudest rejection can drown it out. This is your return, your uprising, your reckoning with every identity the world placed on your back. And this time you don't negotiate with your truth. You don't dim for peace. You don't twist yourself into someone else's mirror. You stand, you own, you claim the wholeness that was never gone, only hidden. And as the world spins faster, as noise grows louder, you stay still, you stay clear. You stay home within yourself because you finally remember you were never meant to blend in. You were meant to burn with a light so honest, so fierce, so magnetic that even the darkness steps back in awe. You are not their idea of who you should be. You are your own becoming, wild, radiant, untamed, and now you're not just alive, you are awakened. So here you are, not as who they trained you to be, not as who the world rewarded, but as who you were before the world ever touched you. No more masks, no more rehearsals, no more living someone else's version of worthy, because this isn't just healing, this is a resurrection. This is the part where your soul steps forward and says, I am not here to please you, I am here to become all of me, even if it terrifies you. And in that holy rebellion, you don't just set yourself free, you become a map for every other soul who forgot who they are. You become proof that it's not too late, that the real you, the wild, honest, radiant you, is still alive beneath the ruins. And all you had to do was stop running from yourself and start remembering. So go, speak without shrinking, love without fear, move through this world like your soul was never broken, because it never was. You were never lost, just buried. And now you rise